Hey guys, it's koolysmiley, and I know some of y'all are horror fans just like me, and with spooky season being almost here and us already celebrating it, I thought it would be the perfect time to tell you guys about some of the horror films I've watched in 2022. Now, last year, I did a massive video about 6 horror movies that scared me, 6 horror movies that were fun, and 6 horror movies that were good for her. I did that because I felt like I hadn't had a movie recommendation list that I was super proud of yet on my YouTube channel. And that was of all the horror films that I could think of at the time that I had ever seen. Well, I've seen a lot of really good films this year, and I want to give them their time to shine. So if you haven't seen that YouTube video yet, don't worry. It's going to be in the description below if you guys want to watch it. But also, that's not the only scary recommendations that you can find on my channel. I have a whole lot of spooky Halloween videos. And I bring this up just in case you're new to the channel. So let's get into it. This list is movies that I have seen in 2022. This isn't necessarily movies that came out in 2022. It's just when I happen to have watched it. One thing about me is I love horror, and I'm not going to tell you that a movie's bad. I think that horror is completely subjective. This is something I could make a whole entire video about, and believe me, I've been jotting down notes. I'm going to eventually. But when it comes to the movies I like to talk about, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be everybody's cup of tea. But when I like a movie, I just like a good experience. That doesn't necessarily mean it's amazing cinematography, a perfect script, cheap or good jump scares. I don't care about that. I just want to have fun. So this list that I have is not necessarily movies I will recommend for each and every one of you, but it is all movies that I watched this year that I enjoyed. We're going to start with remakes. I saw 2 different remakes this year and or sequels. And this was the reason for that disclaimer, because first and foremost on this list was the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I know people drilled this movie and hated on this movie, and this movie is the reason I want to make a video about how horror fans are ruining the horror genre, because I don't care. I don't care if you didn't like it. When I watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre, especially a remake, I am never expecting anything but gore and a good time, okay? The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre was a masterpiece and disgusting and unsettling, but I'm not expecting to get that from a remake, and I think that's why people didn't like this film. I loved it. I had so much fun watching it. It includes so many tropes. It includes homages to the original film. The script can be cringy at times, but that's a trope that I also love in horror that I used to get all the time when I was a kid watching horror in the early 2000s, you know? It gave me the same feel that watching, I don't know, Stay Alive gave me when that movie came out. The video game movie where if you die in the video game, you die in real life. Yeah, those movies were fun, and they weren't necessarily good, but they were fun, and that's how I felt about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So if you haven't seen it yet, it should be on Netflix. It's definitely worth a watch. It's gory. You could watch it under an influence and laugh your ass off. You could take it seriously and have a bad time. That's up to you. The next thing on my list is the new Scream film. I think this movie came out in January or February of 2022, but I didn't watch it until about a month ago. And I'm going to bring this up a few times, but the actress that is in the first scene, you know, every Scream film has the iconic first scene, the first call, the first girl to get attacked, right? That actress who's from You, she was in X as well, which is also on this list. I think she is going to be the next final girl of our generation. She has the expressions, she has the acting ability, and she's always willing to commit, which you need in a final girl. I loved her in the new Scream film. I loved the whole cast in the new Scream film. I love that Scream is always so self-aware. It's always making fun of itself. It's always twists and turns, and it's always a little bit predictable. I know a lot of people didn't necessarily love this film, but I just truly think that horror fans are so sick of new. And I just don't know what to tell you. If we keep ourselves pigeonholed in the same boxes and the same old that we've been creating since 1970, we're not gonna get anywhere. There's gonna be no growth. There's gonna be no cinematography that is exciting or new. Anyway, Scream was exactly what you'd expect while also being not what you'd expect, and I had a great time. The next movie I want to talk about also has Jenna Ortega in it, and this is the movie that sold her for me, and this movie was called X. Came out in March of 2022. A group of people decide to rent out a cabin in the woods to film an X-rated film. And it includes Brittany Snow, Mia Goth, Jenna Ortega, and fucking Kid Cudi, which is hilarious. This movie came at the exact same time that I started doing this eye makeup look, and I showed up to the movie theater in this eye makeup look and didn't realize until later that I ended up making myself look like the main character, Mia Goth's character. And I love that. I love it. Every time I wear this eye makeup look, I'm like, I'm in a 70s porno. This movie is not monumental. It's not. It's interesting. It's beautifully shot. It's fucking hilarious and kind of gross. And it itches a part of my brain because it's like 70s, 80s aesthetic, which I love. I think this movie does something beautiful that we haven't seen well done in a very long time, where you guys know the trope of you have sex, you die in a horror film. This movie is about filming porn. So of course all the characters have sex, but it's fun and funny and sexy, and I don't see actual sexiness in horror films anymore. You see like gross high schoolers getting sexualized all the time in horror films nowadays, but this to me feels tasteful, ridiculous, empowering, and I've said funny. How many times have I said funny? I was genuinely not expecting to laugh as much as I did during this movie. I really recommend this one for a good time. Next movie on my list also came out this year. It's called Fresh, Sebastian Stan. Let me tell you, and I can't remember the actress's name, but she's also really, really great. I loved this movie, but let me tell you, it can also be very triggering as a femme-presenting person, but it was worth getting past the parts that felt really icky to really see this film through. I should say that I did kind of hate it at first, and then I loved it. It was not a movie that I was like, it was a movie that I was kind of like, this makes me feel like, I mean, I guess that's what some horrors try to do. They try to genuinely make you upset because it reminds you of your fears in real life, right? As a woman being on social media, I always feel the kind of fears that are kind of put in place in this film. So it was unsettling and not in a fun way for me, at least for the first 30 minutes. And then it took a turn. This movie took a turn, and I really liked it. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again, but I don't think I'll ever forget it. And then the iconic scene that was on TikTok of them dancing. Next movie on my list, I actually only watched because I've recently been obsessed with The Quarry, and this was on Amazon Prime, and I have a new obsession with the actor Miles Robbins, which, fun fact, he plays Dylan in The Quarry. I believe he's Susan Sarandon and Tim Robbins' son, which is interesting. A lot of my viewers like to bring that up, but what I found interesting is that he was actually in the first of the remakes of Halloween. He plays the stoner, which I loved that character in that movie. I thought he was so scrumdiddlyumptious. Anyways, years later, I realized that that's him. I did a little deep dive and saw Daniel Isn't Real on my Amazon Prime, sitting there for free. So I was like, fuck it, let's watch it. This movie should definitely have a trigger warning if you're down to look it up. I feel like there's mental health, mental illness trigger warning, and maybe SA trigger warning. But I think I would have enjoyed this movie more if it wasn't triggering for me. I think that the cinematography is really incredible. I think the acting is well done. I think the script is cool, but the character Daniel is very triggering to me. So I actually did not end up finishing the movie. I decided that maybe that's a movie I touch on later in the future. But if you guys did enjoy Miles Robbins' performance in The Quarry, I definitely recommend at least giving this movie a try. Just make sure to look up trigger warnings ahead of time. My next recommendation I watched with some friends just on a whim. It was on Netflix. It's called In the Tall Grass. And let me tell you, I go into fight or flight mode anytime I see, what is the actor's name? Patrick Wilson in a horror film. I don't know how to explain it. I don't really enjoy this man. I hate to ever say that about an actor, someone I've never actually met before. But anytime he's in a horror film, I automatically downgrade the horror film like 2 little docks on my brain list. I didn't like the Insidious films. I think that's what started my dislike for this actor. A lot of people love Insidious, and I don't understand that opinion. I find them boring as hell, but it is what it is. I think a lot of people found them scary, and maybe that's why people like them. People say that it's not a cheap jump scare horror film, but that's just not something that I care about. And so that's why I think I have differing opinions. But I think ever since I saw him in Insidious, I just can't take him seriously. But let me tell you, I somehow was able to forget that he was in this film, even though he's a very big character in it. Mainly because this film is so confusing until it's not, and then it still is, but then it's not. And that's really all I can say about it. I remember like the first 15 minutes looking at all my friends and being like, how do they spread this out into a full-length film? And we all just kind of laughed at each other. And then from that moment on, I don't think any of us unglued ourselves from the couch or from the screens. Like, we were all so intrigued. It takes you on a ride. But I can't tell you if I was scared or if I was angry. What was I feeling during this film? I'm really trying to think. I do feel like it's always a good rule of thumb to look up the website. I believe the website is called Does the Dog Die? Please make sure you do that before watching these films if things trigger you. If you're not someone that gets easily triggered, or you're not someone who likes to risk spoilers just to see if you will get triggered, then you don't have to. But I think it's always worth considering when it's movies I'm recommending. What does that say about me? Nothing. I'm perfect. Anyway, this movie is a wild ride. I rarely scream at my television over horror films, but I did for this one. I yelled at the TV quite a few times, but it was definitely, I'm glad that I watched it. I feel like I'm a changed person after watching it. I never thought I would enjoy it, but I was clearly wrong because it clearly stuck with me. I definitely recommend if you're going to watch this, watch it with some friends. It was a great night for us. It might be a great night for you. And the last, but absolutely not least, horror film that I have seen so far in 2022 was Nope. I saw it last night. I was going to film this video yesterday, but my dad and I had tickets to go see Nope. So I said, you know what? Nope. Get it? I'm going to film this tomorrow after I see Nope. And let me tell you, I am passionate about this film. I haven't been passionate about a horror film since I saw Midsommar the second time. In my opinion, this is Jordan Peele's, well, I can't say, Get Out was a masterpiece too. Did I put Get Out in my last list?
Nope.
I don't know if I did. Get Out needs to be on one of my recommendations lists. Any horror film by Jordan Peele, Get Out, Us, Nope, I recommend all of them. All of them. He's a genius. I can make a whole video just about those 3 films. And maybe I will. Go see Nope. Go see it with an open mind. I think you always should nowadays because, in my opinion, horror is elevated only when it's stuff that we haven't expected or seen yet. And I got that. This movie was elevated, let me tell you. I laughed so much, and I also felt so scared that I ripped up a napkin. This movie made me feel terror in a way I don't think I've ever felt watching a horror film. And I genuinely mean that. My dad looked over at me at one point because I think he could tell that my body language, I was just kind of frozen up. The terror in this film is not long lived, which I love. Like, I hate movies that kind of like, you know, almost leave you scared for a really long time for like a whole scene, and it's just slow paced to like bring up one jump scare. This movie doesn't do that. The pacing of this film is perfect. The script, perfect. The acting, the casting, all of it's perfect. It is fun to watch and scary to watch, and I want to go see it again now. And it's going to stick with me for a long time. And bitch, it touches on some conspiracy shit that I have thought about for a long time that I feel like doesn't get touched on. So I want you guys to go see it so I can make a video just talking about this movie in particular. So please go see Nope. Let me know how you enjoyed it. Let's be super dope and respectful in the comment section below. I want to know what movies you guys have seen in 2022, but let's do our best to keep out any spoilers. So we can recommend movies to my viewers, to each other as a community that maybe they haven't seen, that others haven't seen, without ruining it for them. Can we do that? I would love for that to be a regular thing we do on my channel, because sharing film knowledge and recommendations is my love language. Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I am so impressed every new horror film I see in 2022. I think that, but I love talking about scary shit, y'all. If you guys want me to talk about more of it, let me know by leaving a like. Subscribe to the channel. If you sat through this whole video and you aren't already subscribed, what are you doing? This is the kind of content I make. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button if you want notifications anytime I go live. Nope, anytime I post a new video. I'm a streamer. And don't forget, I create content at all of these places, and I'm here at least one day out of the week. You're going to get content from me from one of these places. So if you guys feel like you don't get enough here, you can follow me here. I appreciate the hell out of y'all. Happy spooky forever. Instead of spooky season, it's spooky forever. Anyway, I'll see you guys on the YouTubes later. Let's fangirl over some scary shit together, friends.